Welcome to The Explainer, where we take complex stories and break them down into these clear, dynamic summaries for you.
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are doing a really detailed breakdown of Chapter 58 of Bibliomancers. We're going to unpack every single major plot point, from the emotional fallout of that dragon story all the way to a brand new and pretty heartbreaking sci-fi drama.
So here's our roadmap. We're just going to follow the chapter as it unfolds, starting with the aftermath of the last story, then we'll see how a new request leads to a fascinating interview, and finally, we'll dive headfirst into the incredible story that Rose creates from it.
Okay, so the chapter kicks off right after the story of Cormac the Paladin wraps up. Rose is debriefing with him, but Cormac, well, he's not exactly in a celebratory mood.
He is just completely wiped out, emotionally. You can feel him wrestling with this huge sense of failure. He's convinced he should have done more than just follow the rigid rules of his goddess Vesta. He really believes he should have personally made sure that princess got to safety.
But Rose, she immediately flips the script on his perspective. She argues that by sticking to the rules, he actually did something way bigger. Think about it. He saved the girl from getting totally incinerated on the altar because, she wasn't a virgin. And he protected the dragon eggs from a ritual that would have messed up their entire lineage. In her eyes, he didn't just save a girl, he saved a whole dynasty.
Later on, when she's talking with her editor, Sparky, Rose really digs into the philosophy of her story. And this is so interesting. It's not some simple good versus evil tale. No, the real conflict here is between two massive forces. You've got inflexible, lawful order on one side and selfish, chaotic individualism on the other. And Rose's whole point is that the true heroic path, it's not at either extreme. It's somewhere in that messy, nuanced middle ground.
Okay, so fast forward to the next morning. A totally unexpected request comes in, and it sets a whole new plot in motion.
Rose is just grabbing some donuts when Paula from the bakery comes up to her, and Paula explains that Eldara, our town librarian, is feeling a little left out. See, Rose had initially turned down both her and McCracken for a story, but then she went and wrote one for McCracken anyway. So Eldara's kind of hoping Rose might reconsider her.
Rose is definitely intrigued by this, so she agrees to meet with Eldara, and she treats it like a real professional interview. The first step to see if there's a good story hiding in there somewhere. And whoa, what a story it is. Eldara's past is one of total rebellion. Her family basically forced her into engineering so she could take over their firm. But on the very first day she was supposed to start work, she packed a single bag, jumped on a coach, and just left. Ditched the whole thing. She ends up in Wildwood, sees a librarian wanted sign in the window, and walks right in, suitcase and all, to claim the job she was always meant to have.
And that's it. That is the spark Rose was looking for. She takes these two core pieces of Eldara's character, this serious engineering background, and this deep, passionate love for information and community, and she starts spinning them into a story in a completely different genre.
And with that, boom, we pivot hard. We are leaving the fantasy world of Wildwood behind and diving straight into the science fiction story that Rose is creating just for Eldara.
So in this new story, Eldara is a retired genius who created a fully sentient AI named Hexcon. And we're not talking about some simple program here. Hexcon is Eldara's constant companion, her collaborator, her best friend. She knows everything about a creator's life. They're that close.
So where's the conflict? Well, it walks right in the door. Eldara gets called into her old company, and her former colleague, this bean counter type named Hubert, tells her they're decommissioning Hexcon. She's 6 generations old now, uses way too much power, and they want to shut her down to make way for a newer model.
And this quote, this is everything. The battle lines are drawn right here. The company, through Hubert, sees Hexcon as property, an it. But Eldara, her creator, her friend, she sees her as a person, a her. And that becomes the core question of the whole story. Is Hexcon a machine or is she a living being?
Eldara is absolutely horrified. She is not about to let them just flip a switch and turn Hexcon off. So she immediately decides to take them to court. And she frames the whole lawsuit not as some breach of contract, but as a fight for Hexcon's fundamental right to exist.
But, the deck is just stacked against them from the start. Her lawyer finds a problem in her retirement contract, and even worse, no court has ever recognized an AI as being sentient. So even though they bring in experts and present all this evidence of Hexcon's consciousness, the judge ultimately rules against them. In this powerful, raw, emotional closing statement,
Eldara makes one last desperate plea. She argues that the entire tech industry is terrified of admitting that AIs are sentient. Why? Because if they do, they're also admitting that they are creating a race of slaves. And as she puts it, that's never a good look.
But the plea, it doesn't work. The case is lost. And with only 2 days left before HexCon is scheduled to be terminated, they are faced with a truly impossible choice.
And this is where the story becomes so profound. HexCon makes this incredibly selfless decision. Instead of trying a risky direct transfer of her own mind to the new hardware, she suggests something else. She'll use her final moments to give birth to a new AI, an offspring. It is an act of total self-sacrifice because in creating this new life, her own consciousness will be completely destroyed.
2 days later, it's done. HexCon is gone. Eldara greets this new baby AI, names her Hattie, and promises to love and protect her, just like she did her mother.
And that's where the story ends, leaving us with this massive, haunting question. It just forces you to think about what really defines life and consciousness. I mean, if a being can show love and fear and make the ultimate sacrifice for the next generation, what is it really that separates it from being alive?